One of the most revered artists of all time is George Strait, who is widely recognized as the king of country music and is often considered to be one of the finest musical acts of the last several decades. The music industry has never seen anyone like him because of his distinctive voice, original tunes, and honest, real performance. His announcement of retirement came in 2012 after more than 30 years of making wonderful music for people all across the globe. But the Strait family will learn something new in the future. And everything turns out to be just as expected. But first, let's take a peek at the country music star's life to figure out what it is. When compared to other country artists, what sets George Strait apart? Just how much of an impact did his songs have on the development of country music? Come with us as we uncover the country music star's life story and the truth that his son has now revealed to the world. The son of John Byron Strait, Sr., and Doris Jean Cowser, George Strait came into this world in the Texas hamlet of Poteet on May 18, 1952. He spent his childhood in the Fryette County village of Pearsall, which is located southwest of San Antonio. His dad maintained a ranch outside of Big Wells, Texas, on 2,000 acres, and he taught mathematics to junior high school students. Over the summer and on weekends, everyone in the family pitched in to help out at the ranch. The family split up while George was in 4th grade and his mom moved with George's sister Pensy. The father also raised George, and his brother John Buddy Jr. Strait spent most of his youth working the ranch alongside his dad and older brother. When Strait was a senior at Pearsall High School, he began his musical career as a member of the Stoics, a rock and roll garage band. He drew inspiration from the likes of the Beatles and other renowned British rock invasion-era bands to create his own unique sound. Shortly after, he shifted his taste to country music and began to admire artists like Lefty Frizzell, Hank Williams, George Jones, Merle Haggard, Hank Thompson, and Frank Sinatra. To be honest, Strait wasn't a huge fan of country music when he was younger. He formerly tuned in to the Farmer's Report and the news instead. Strait claims that hearing live country music performances was a typical occurrence in every Texas town, and this is how he first became acquainted with the genre. This allowed him to collect a wide range of ideas and perspectives, which he then used to develop his own distinctive style. While he was a college student, George Strait's music career gained greater traction. The venue was San Marcos's Southwest Texas State University. The Stony Ridge, a country band, gave Strait his niche. The band sent a recruiting poster across campus in their search for a new lead singer. Here he started to hone his abilities on the guitar and in the voice department. From Huntsville and Houston in the east to various local nightclubs and pubs in South and Central Texas, the band played everywhere. After rebranding the ensemble as the Ace in the Hole Band, Strait quickly rose to the position of leader. They became well known in their area and had the opportunity to open for national acts like the Texas Playboys. "I Can't Go On Dying Like This" and "Don't Change the Way I Feel About You" were among the singles that Strait wrote, and they were given the opportunity to record them by an independent label in Houston. But nobody seemed to hear the tunes, so Strait kept working the cattle ranch his family owned throughout the day to make ends meet. Despite his ongoing absence from the music recording industry, Strait persisted in performing with his band. He befriended R.V. Woolsey, the owner of a bar where Ace and the band often performed. In due time, R.V. worked for the legendary record company MCA Records in the past. Woolsey persuaded some of his Nashville connections to attend Strait and his band's performance in Texas. Although initially impressed, they were unable to make a deal in the end. The band's main challenge was the fear that its Western swing sound would not be marketable. Despite this, Strait persisted in making the trip to Nashville in the hopes of signing with a record label, but each one turned him down. He decided to quit music because he was exhausted and dissatisfied. He told the band he was leaving, but then he talked to his wife, who said he should give music another go for a year. So he changed his mind. Major label MCA signed Strait to a recording contract in February 1981, not long after. One song was all that was originally agreed upon. After the single was successful, the record company would think about publishing the album. George Strait's new solo career continued with the band's Ace performing as both his backing band and tour band. Unwound, Strait's debut single, reached number 6 on the Billboard Hot Country Songs chart in 1981 after its release in the spring by MCA Records. His debut album, Straight Country, later featured it. Along with Down and Out, the album's second song, If You're Thinking You Need a Stranger, There's One Coming Home was another track that did well. Critics hailed Straight Country's meteoric rise to fame as a new traditionalist breakthrough, a welcome departure from the pop-dominated genre that had been dominating the scene up until then. In 1982, Strait released their second studio album titled Straight from the Heart. Amarillo by Morning, a Western ballad, was a top 5 smash, while Fool-Hearted Memory, his first #1 single, was featured on the album. When the headliner at the 1983 Houston livestock show Rodeo became sick with the flu and had to cancel, Strait stepped in to make his rodeo debut. It has been his hallmark ever since the rodeo performance. More than 1 million people have seen him perform in front of rodeo arenas on more than 20 occasions. Throughout the decade, 17 of Strait's songs reached #1. That included a run of 5 songs from his subsequent 2 albums in 1983 and 1984. The albums were Right or Wrong, which debuted at #1, and the one that won a CMA award. Does the thought of Fort Worth ever occur to you? He published his first compilation album the following year, which was a collection of songs from those first 3 albums, and he also received the CMA Award for Best Male Vocalist. The Chair song was the lead song from Something Special, Strait's third consecutive #1 album, which was released in 1985. His fourth record reached #1 in 1986, and he was also named CMA Vocalist of the Year. The tide turned in Strait's career during this time. He became a household name and a pivotal player in the genre as a result. George Strait kept his cool and collected demeanor through all the storms that rolled through his personal life. He and his wife Norma have been married for many years, and theirs is a love tale that will go down in country music history books as one of the most legendary. George and Norma, who would later become their wives, were high school sweethearts who couldn't wait to tell their families about their romance. After finishing college, they secretly wed in Mexico on December 4, 1971, and eloped. Strait enlisted as an infantryman in the United States Army that same year. He served with the 25th Infantry Division out of Schofield Barracks in Hawaii. Here he joined Rambling Country, an Army-sponsored country band, where he played bass and did stand up under the stage name Santee. Strait was a corporal after 4 years of service in the military, which he began in 1971 and ended in 1975. While serving in the Army, his love for music remained strong, and he really came into his own as a performer, laying the groundwork for his legendary career in country music. Norma and Strait both have 2 children. Jennifer was born on October 6, 1972, the first child. In 1981, they welcomed a son into the world, George Harvey Strait Jr., better known as Bubba. Unfortunately, the joy didn't last long for the family because in 1986, their daughter Jennifer was murdered in a car accident when she was 13 years old. She was reportedly not wearing her seatbelt when her automobile flipped over as it attempted to make a turn, according to United Press International. He continued his music and career after Jennifer's death, but he avoided interviews with media for a long time. George and his family were profoundly affected by this devastating loss, and the anguish remains profound to this day. George has had to cope with this loss on top of all the other challenges that come with being a musician. Being renowned has put a lot of strain on him. Some examples of this include the constant monitoring of public figures by the media and the intrusion of the media into private affairs. George, meanwhile, has always maintained his grounded nature and prioritized his family and music above all else. The major source of inspiration for George's music is, unsurprisingly, his personal life. His songs represent his experiences of love, loss, and resilience. The secret to his work's immense popularity lies in his skill at evoking nostalgia and his ability to establish personal connections with fans. Strait likes a variety of pastimes beyond music, including steer roping, golf, and skiing. The Vaqueros del Mar, also known as the Cowboys of the Sea, were formed by Strait and his longtime friend and business partner Tom Cusick. In Bourne, Texas, at Strait and Cusick's Tapatio Springs Resort, there is an invitation-only golf tournament and concert that happens once a year. Funds from the Invitational Championship will go to David Fahirdy's Troops First Foundation, an organization that helps injured service members and their families. More than $5 million USD were collected in the inaugural year of the activities in 2012. And gathering of political and business leaders throughout the state, the Texas Legislative Conference honored George Strait with the 2018 Texan of the Year award in January 2018. Strait released a plethora of songs for the 1992 film Pure Country soundtrack, which served as the basis for his debut cinematic performance. The film's protagonist, Dusty Chandler George Strait, was a famous country singer who dabbled in genres outside of country music. It gave him the opportunity to experiment with a rock and roll sound that was different from his southern flair. With more accolades than any other country music icon, George Strait is undoubtedly a legend. When it comes to country music, he has more #1 albums and singles than anybody else, as well as more gold, platinum, and multi-platinum albums. Across all genres, he ranks 11th for most #1 albums. In terms of the number of albums certified gold or platinum, Strait ranks 3rd all-time, behind only Elvis Presley and the Beatles. With 70 million records sold in the U.S. alone, he is also the 12th best-selling musician in American history. As of this writing, he has more #1 hits than anyone else, regardless of genre or chart. Has 60 #1 hits since 2013, and the only artist in music history to achieve this feat for 30 consecutive years across all genres. In addition, with 92 singles under his belt, Strait is 2nd all-time in the history of music. He is only 5 songs shy of Eddie Arnold's record. Entertainer of the Year is one of 22 CMA awards that Strait has collected. He won it 3 times: 1989, 1990, and 2013. The musician was officially named the record holder for most country music awards in 2009 by the Country Music Awards Association. In 2006, he was invited to the Country Music Hall of Fame for this, and right before the plaque was presented, he shook the stage with his then #1 hit, Give It Away. Following Eddie Arnold's 1966 Hall of Fame induction, he is the 2nd biggest artist of all time. But he's still very much involved in the music industry as a record producer. His most recent albums and singles are still huge hits. Strait was named the 2000s Performer of the Decade at the Academy of Country Music Awards in October 2008. Among country music artists of the last quarter of a century, Strait was named by Billboard on June 8, 2010. Above all things, he stands head and shoulders above the competition as the sole performer to have won the Entertainer of the Year award for 3 decades in a row. The current estimated net worth of American country music singer, producer, and actor George Strait is at $300 million. Along with being one of the most famous musicians of all time, George Strait is renowned as the King of Country. While most of his contemporaries were embracing the more pop-influenced sounds of the 1980s, George Strait stayed true to country music's traditional roots and urged his peers to do the same. Among all artists, Strait ranks among the highest charting. His record sales exceed 120 million units globally. Of all his albums, 13 achieved multi-platinum status, including the 8 times platinum Pure Country, while 33 reached platinum. Many people were curious about George Strait during his career. When George Strait retires, who will take over for him? Can we expect country music to remain unchanged? Everyone undoubtedly understood what would happen as a result of Strait's retirement, but the fans were still asking all these questions and more. Everyone assumed that George Strait Jr. would carry on the tradition of authentic country music. This conviction was more than a wild speculation. It was the inevitable conclusion that supporters had anticipated from Strait's entire career. Collaborating on their finest tracks, the father and son had both worked tirelessly. Plus, both of Strait's sons have contributed to the songwriting process, and has also shared the stage in cowboy garb, including denim shirts and hats with large brims. Because of all that, speculation began that Strait Jr. might succeed his father. At the age of 43, George Strait Jr. has finally proven what everyone has suspected all along. Born in San Marcos, Texas on May 14, 1981, George Strait Jr. is better known as Bubba. He started competing in rodeo events while he was a student at Texas A&M. The Arkansas Democrat-Gazette said that he eventually became a roper with the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association. Many of the subsequent events were attended by Bubba, including the 2004 22nd George Strait Team Roping Classic. He continued roping for a bit, but in an attempt at an errant loop, he nearly severed his index finger. George Strait is an authentic rodeo enthusiast. Strait produced the yearly Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association Team Roping Classic for 35 years, until 2017. His greatest accomplishment, he said 10 years ago in an interview with the Team Roping Journal, was winning alongside his kid. Team roping was his life's work. Although Bubba is no longer a household name, he is still active in the music industry. In the 1992 film Pure Country, a young Bubba can be heard singing the first notes of the song Heartland. Later in life, he collaborated with his dad on the songwriting for albums like Living for the Night, Out of Sight, and Out of Mind. On George's subsequent 4 studio albums, Bubba also contributed songwriting: A Hoot in 2011, Love Is Everything 2013, Cold Beer Conversation 2015, and Honky Tonk Time Machine are all included. At the final performance of Bubba's Cowboy Rides Away tour, which lasted for 2 years, in Arlington, Texas in 2014, the two of them shared the stage. Bubba sang a solo version of his song Arkansas's Dave with the duo. The most attended North American concert of all time was the Country Music King's farewell performance at T Stadium. The previous record holder, held by the Rolling Stones, was 104,793 spectators. On a revolving stage in the center of the enormous stadium, Strait stood with his ace-in-the-hole band, surrounded by 10,000 floor-mounted temporary seats. People from all over came to Arlington Stadium to hear him play his biggest hits and relive his glory days. Shown for CMT's George Strait concert special of the Cowboy Rides Away tour, George Strait resigned from traveling following the performance. In addition to attending the 2007 Country Music Hall of Fame medallion ceremony, the 44th Annual Academy of Country Music Awards Artist of the Decade in 2009, and the 50th Annual ASCAP Country Music Awards in Nashville in 2012, Bubba also accompanied his dad at a number of red carpet events. Though he himself does not have an online presence, real estate agent Tamara Strait, Bubba's wife, frequently shares Instagram photos of the couple. In 2005, while Tamara was a silver dancer for the San Antonio Spurs, the two started dating. Bubba and Tamara were married a short time after being engaged in 2010. The couple's offspring are Jillian Louise Strait and George Harvey Strait III, who was born in 2012. Born in 2016. When compared to his famous father, Bubba does not fare as well, but his musical career has been marked by notable accomplishments and turning points. Keep the country music flame alive and vibrant for years to come with Strait Jr., who continues in his legendary father's footsteps. But Bubba's musical journey isn't only about carrying on his father's work, it's also about forging his own path and making his own impression in the industry, just like his father before him. What Strait Jr. listens to and how he expresses himself are completely up to him. In doing so, he will add to the musical family's rich history and guarantee that it will continue to thrive as new generations join it.